Another video today. So yeah, here we go, and we're on Korea today. I'm doing like with Ireland. I'm doing Korea as one, although I know that they're two very separate countries and all that. So yeah, here we go. As we do have a bit to get through, as I've got like 8 pages of script and all that. So yeah. By 4000 BC, there were Stone Age farmers living in what is now Korea. And then by 1000 BC, they learned to use bronze and all. And then in 300 BC, they learned to use iron and to make tools and weapons. And the first Korea was divided into tribes, but eventually an organised kingdoms emerged. And there are 3 of them: Goguryeo in the north, and Silla and Bakji in the south. According to legend, Silla was founded in 57 BC by Bakhyogyeose, as Jomong founded Goguryeo in 57 BC, and Anjo was founded by Bakji in 18 BC. But in reality, the kingdoms emerged later in between like the 2nd and 4th centuries AD. These kingdoms were heavily influenced by the Chinese civilization, and by the 4th century they were essentially highly civilized and all. And the 3 kingdoms of Korea fought for supremacy. Then China tries to defeat the northern kingdom of Goguryeo twice, but both times they were defeated by General Uluji Mundok. However, the Chinese then made an alliance with the Silla kingdom against the other 2. As the Bakji kingdom was defeated by 660 AD and became part of Silla, and Goguryeo followed in 668. Korea was then unified under the Silla. My tablet is scaring me. Although Korea was united under one monarch, it was still largely a tribal society, and this was underlined by the existence of a Hoibek. Originally they were a council of tribal leaders, and later they were a council of nobles, and they had the power to decide who succeeded to the throne. Korean society was strictly hierarchical, and for most of the population were serfs. Even the nobility was divided into ranks and all. I found a Chinese example of a university was formed where Confucian classics were taught. It has to be of like a high and noble birth to actually study that and all that. And there were also civil service exams following the Chinese model, and then again only the high and noble could do it. As Buddhism was introduced into Korea in the 4th century AD, and soon many Buddhist temples were built. And later in the 8th century AD, the Silla kingdom began to break down. There were fights over the succession of a throne, and moreover local warlords began to break away from the government in the capital Gyeongju and formed their own states. And one warlord called Wang Gyeon formed a state called Goryeo in 918, and he defeated his rivals, and in 935 became ruler of Silla. And as the Goryeo kingdom was faced with aggressive neighbours, the people called the Yorkins conquered what is northern China, and frequently fought the Koreans, and then China fell to the Mongols, as the Mongols then turned their attentions to Korea. And they invaded in 1231, and the Korean royal family fled to the island of Ganghwa, as Mongols were unable to take the island, but went on a rampage throughout mainland Korea. But the Koreans fought back, and the Mongols were never able to completely subdue Korea. Finally, in 1258, the Korean royal family surrendered, and they were allowed to remain as puppet rulers. I mean, in the 13th century, the Chinese philosopher called Neo Confucianism arrived in Korea, and there was also an age where seldom pottery was made, as a man named Kim Busik wrote a history of Korea called Samgut Sagi, and the history of the three kingdoms. However, the Goryeo dynasty was in decline, and in 1392, a general named Yi Seong-gai was ordered to lead the army against the Ming rulers of China. Instead, he turned against his own rulers, and the general became the new king of Korea. Then the king moved the castle to Hanseong, now Seoul, in 1394. And under the Yi rules, Confucianism was made the official religion of Korea, and Buddhism lost its influence. In 1443, King Sejong created a native Korean alphabet, and in Korea there was a class of scholars, officials called the Yangban. In order to join the civil service or to become an army officer, he had to pass certain exams in Confucian thought. In order to take the exams, you had to be a son of a Yangban. So the scholar official class were hereditary, and below the Yangban were a class of clerks and specialists like doctors and accountants, and they were called Shungin or middlemen. Below them was the great mass of Korean society called the Yangmin. They were like peasants, craftsmen and merchants. Certain trades such as butchers, tanners, entertainers were outcast. And at the bottom of it all were slaves. So it's not just like the Western Peninsula that has had slaves, not. And Japan invaded Korea in 1592 and failed on land, but at sea they were defeated by Admiral Yi Sun-sin. The Japanese were forced to withdraw, and they invaded again in 1597, but withdrew a year later in 1598. And in the 17th century, Korea lost some functionalism along the ruling classes, still had practical learning. Scholars discuss the practical ways of solving Korea's problems rather than purely abstract ideas. And in the 18th century, the kings clamped down on factionalism, and in Korea, the trade and commerce started to flourish. But merchants had a low status in Korean society, as Confucianism regarded them with suspicion since they didn't actually produce anything, unlike someone who was like a peasant or a craftsman who kind of grew and made something. And the first contacts with Europeans came in 1656 when a Dutch ship was shipwrecked off the coast of Korea. And later in the 18th century, Jesuit priests travelled to China visiting Koreans visiting China met them, and by the end of the 18th century some Koreans had been converted to Catholicism. A new religion slowly spread in Korea, despite waves of persecution in 1801, 1839 and 1866. And in the 1850s a new religion was spread among like the peasants and all, and it was called Doghak, like Eastern Learning, and it was led by Cho Jae-woo. As peasants were discontented with the 19th century, and in 1864 there was a rebellion, but the rebellion was crushed and Cho Jae-woo was executed. And during the 19th century, Korea started to adopt an isolationist policy, and Koreans refused to trade with Westerners. At first it was successful to say the least, and some French priests were killed in Korea in 1866, but the French sent a gunboat to avenge them, but they were driven off by Korean shore defences. And in 1871 Koreans burned a ship called the General Sherman, which came to plunder the coast, and the USA sent the ships to Korea, well, fought off. However, the policy of isolation fell behind other countries like technology and industry, and after 1880 King Gojong attempted reforms, and he introduced the slogan Eastern Ethics, Western Technology, but the measures were unpopular and were resisted by conservative officials and ordinary people. And Confucianism was a very conservative religion or philosophy that made radical change difficult as such. And in 1876, Japanese merchants were only allowed to trade in Busan, a city in southeast of South Korea. And in the year they forced the Koreans to sign a treaty of trade and friendship. King Gojong realised that the Koreans were too weak to fight them, and other ports were open to the Japanese, and there were to be no tariffs on Japanese goods. The treaty stated that Japan and Korea were independent nations, however Japan had increasing power and influence over the Koreans. And the Koreans signed a similar treaty with the USA in 1882. This was followed by treaties with Britain and Germany the same year. In 1884 she signed a trade treaty with Russia, and in 1886 with France. And in 1882 some soldiers in Imo rebelled, and they burned the Japanese legation and killed the Japanese military advisor, as Korea was forced to pay compensation to the Japanese and signed the new treaty. The Treaty of Jemulpo, which increased Japanese influence. Furthermore, the Chinese used uprisings as an excuse to station the troops on Korean territory. And in 1894, members of the Donghak religion and the discontented peasants rose in rebellion, and they insisted that they were loyal to the king, but demanded certain reforms. And the king appealed to the Chinese for help, and then he sent troops. Japan also sent troops, and then the king made a truce with the rebels, but the Japanese refused to leave. China and Japan then fought a war which Japan won easily. And for centuries Korea was a tributary state of China, and Chinese influence was now ended and Japan began to dominate Korea. Whereas Japanese installed a regent to rule Japanese pressure to a deliberative council was formed to introduce reforms. And from July 1894 to December 1895, the council swept away much of what was Korean tradition then. And many Koreans who wanted some reform, but the Japanese forced them to introduce these forms anyway. And the regent resigned in October 1894, but the king made no attempt to stop the reforms. And the old rigid division of Korean society into classes was abolished. They passed the Yangban, the scholar official class, were not allowed to be involved in trade. Now they are free to engage in business. And the old civil service exam based on Confucian was abolished. New exams were introduced based on modern subjects. A new curriculum was introduced for schools with modern subjects, and slavery was finally abolished. Whereas we're now allowed to remarry, and child marriage was abolished. Someone's not going to happy down there. Bless me. While all this was being done, the Donbaks started a second rebellion, and they were crushed by the Japanese. The movement was destroyed as the leader was captured and executed in 1895. And some further reforms were undertaken in the years from 1895 to 1910. Someone is very angry at the moment. The first modern textile mill in Korea was built in 1897. And I think Empress Myeong-seong, I think her name is, died somewhere around 1895 or something like that. They were just trying to keep Korea as Korean kind of thing. don't particularly know too much, but I do know the name. And the first railway from Seoul to Incheon was built in 1901. However, Korea remained an overwhelmingly agricultural nation. And by 1900 there were many Protestant missionaries in Korea. Protestants being those that are Christian but don't follow the Pope in Rome. And it's kind of like many different branches of Protestantism. Like Church of England, Russian Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, that kind of thing. Greek Orthodox, and yeah. And by 1910 there was a small but rapidly growing number of converts. And increasingly Korea fell under Japanese domination in Korea and was made a Japanese protectorate, which meant that Japan now controlled Korean foreign policy and its relations with other countries. And when in 1907 Korea was forced to accept limited Japanese control of its internal affairs, and the Korean army was disbanded. A Japanese official was sent to Renfrew, but was assassinated in 1909, and that gave the Japanese an excuse to annex Korea, which they did in 1910. So yeah, think about your actions as you always have. Consequences kind of thing. So yeah. And yeah, the Japanese turned Korea into a colony to supply Japan with food, but they also built bridges, railways and roads. As the Japanese also built many factories in Korea as the urban population grew rapidly. Although Korea remained predominantly agricultural still, but nonetheless Japanese rule was repressive. 1919 the Koreans took part in a peaceful demonstration of independence, but the Japanese responded by arresting and executing thousands of people. And afterwards they made small reforms, as the Koreans were allowed to print newspapers and hold meetings, as they were also granted religious freedom and more respect was shown to Korean customs and all that. However, reforms were superficial, and in the late 30s the Japanese tried to assimilate the Koreans by persuading them to adopt Japanese names. And in 1930 education was not only in Japanese, school children were forbidden to speak Korean, as the Japanese also tried to persuade the Koreans to adopt Shinto, which was the Japanese national religion, but with no success as such. And during World War II, many Koreans either volunteered or were forced to work in Japan. However, the Japanese attempts to turn Korea into part of Japan ended in 1945 when Japan obviously surrendered to the Allies and all. Even before the war ended, Russia and the USA agreed that after the war Korea would be divided into two zones, the Russian and American zones. In 1945 Russian troops entered the north, and in September after the Japanese surrender American troops landed in the south, and Korea was divided into two along like an imaginary line known as the 38th parallel, and was literally intended the two zones would eventually be united into one. And of course it didn't happen like with Germany, and born like Germany is still going. And with the onset of the Cold War, the line divided between them only hardened. The Russians installed a communist government in the north, and the south government was elected in 1948. And Korea became two countries, like one communist, the north, and one democratic. And the North Korean army invaded the south on 25th of June 1950 and quickly drove south and captured Seoul, as the UN Security Council invited members to help the south. The US troops arrived on the 30th of June, but they were forced to withdraw into an area around Busan, as the British troops arrived in Korea on the 29th of August 1950. On the 15th of September, other US troops landed at Incheon, which is about 150 miles north of Busan, and the soldiers in the Busan area broke out and were pushed north and linked up with troops in Incheon. And on the 26th of September, on the same day, Allied troops liberated Seoul, and United Nations troops then pushed colonists back over the 38th parallel, and by the 25th of November they controlled about 2/3 of North Korea. But the Chinese then intervened, as they'd just come out of their own civil war with the colonists coming out on top and all. And strengthened by the Chinese 180,000 troops, the North Communists then countered attacks and drove the Allies south. As the Communists attacked again on the 1st of January 1951. Good way to start the new year, no pun intended. As the Allies counterattacked on the 25th of January and on the 14th of March, they again liberated Seoul. Several communist offensives followed, but all of them were eventually repulsed. As the war ended in a stalemate on the 27th of July 1953, as a ceasefire was signed, and they were at the 38th parallel again. Now, one small little fact. The Korean War is technically still going, as yes, they signed the ceasefire, but no peace treaty was ever actually signed, so technically speaking it was still going, still going on. So yeah. Now going on about the South Korean in north half of the 20th century for now, before we go on to the north. So yeah, as democracy didn't exactly flourish in South Korea in the 50s, as President Sang-man Rhee used a national security law in 1949 to close newspapers and imprison critics.
Why are you always in there? You've been back 5 minutes and you're in there. Houston, we have a problem.
I'm pretty sure Pyongyang hates Houston, considering Houston has a better space program. However, his administration was corrupt, and by the 1960s it was facing growing economic problems, and in 1960 riots by students forced Rhee to resign, and faced with inflation, employment and continuing riots, the army staged a coup in 1961, and General Park Chung-hee became ruler. At first the general declared martial law, but in 1963 he held presidential elections and won. Nonetheless his rule was repressive and all, as he won a second election in 1967, as the general won a third election in 1971, by a dinky margin. And afterwards he drew up a new constitution which gave him more power, but 8 years later he was assassinated in the October of 1979. And despite a repressive rule from South Korea's economy began to grow rapidly from mid-1960s, and by the 1990s the country had undergone an economic miracle, and it was transformed from a poor, relatively undeveloped country into a thriving and rich economy, and the state played a large part of the transformation, as in the 1960s General Park built roads and bridges and expanded education. A series of 5-year plans were drawn up, and the government took central role in running the economy. Industry became dominant in the large corporations called chaebol. Sister's not too happy, as she's likely being a little stubborn. After the assassination of General Park in 1979, the army again stepped in to restore order, and General Chun Dai-hwan took power in May 1980, and he declared martial law and arrested his opponents, and demonstrations held against him were held in the city of Gwangju and were led by students. But the army kind of crushed the protests by killing hundreds of people. After the assassination of that one in the 1980s, the Korean economy continued to grow, and the country climbed out of poverty, and South Korea became more of an affluent society. By 1988, the Olympics were held in Seoul and brought South Korea into the international limelight. But by the mid-1980s, there was increasing unrest in Seoul, led by students who were unhappy with the regime. And in 1987, Christian leaders spoke out against the regime, and many people held mass demonstrations, as General Chun agreed to step down and democratic elections were held. And in 1988, General Ra Ta-woo was elected president. And by the 1990s, Korea had become a fairly rich nation, and its people had quite a high standard of living, and it was also a democratic country. And in the 1990s, the government also began to deregulate industry. So yeah, now we're up in the north, which was in stark contrast, and after the Russian troops occupied the north, a communist government was installed, as Kim Il-sung was made ruler. Like many dictators and all, he created a cult of personality by erecting statues of himself everywhere, and school children were taught to see him as bountiful wisdom, and he created a very repressive regime. His religious beliefs were outlawed and people were strictly controlled. So North Korea is the last Stalinist regime in the world. And with a great deal of Russian aid, North Korea was transformed from a poor agricultural society into an industrial one. But by the mid-1970s, the economy began to stagnate, and North Korea was overtaken by the South. Furthermore, North Korea was harmed by the collapse of the Soviet Union, with Kim Il-sung dying not too long later, in 1994, as we were 3 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. And he was succeeded by his son, and in fact the communists have created a new dynasty. And when Kim Jong-il kind of inherited the country, until he too died in 2011, and was followed by his son, the now ruler, Kim Jong-un. And in the late 1990s, a severe famine occurred in North Korea. There was unusually heavy rain and floods in 1995-1996, followed by a drought in 1997, and a typhoon damage in 1997 as malnutrition became common, especially among children. However, the statistics on how many people died during it is not really known, as it's been kind of downplayed a little bit by the government and all. So yeah. And in 2000, moving on, we can probably talk a little bit more about South Korea and all this. Born Yi So-yeon became the first Korean to travel in space. And then in 2013, Park Geun-hye became the first female president of the South. And in 2018, there was a foreign relations between North and South, as we know today, is North and South kind of united under one flag for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. And yeah, today the population of North Korea is about 25 million, while the population of South is 51. So yeah, if I did the maths right, there's about 76 million people in Korea. So yeah. Moving on to language, as we're slowly getting there. Korea, known in the language itself as Kugo, is a language of the Korean peninsula in Northwest Asia. Now in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, known as DPRK or North Korea. There are about 20 million speakers, and in the Republic of Korea, or ROK, or South Korea, there are about 42 million speakers, and Korean is also spoken by about 2 million people in China, mainly in provinces like bordering North Korea. And there's about 500,000 speakers in Japan and Russia, as well as significant numbers in the United States, with somewhere around 600,000, with large communities on the West Coast and in New York, and other communities are found in Singapore, Thailand, Guam and Paraguay. The total number of speakers is about 72 million, something like that. As Korean has been listed as a critical language by the American State Department because of strategic business and security interests in the Korean speaking world, as well as a heritage language due to American citizens of Korean heritage. Now, North Korea was declared a powerful threat in 2003 after they tested nuclear weapons despite disapproval of the United Nations. And yeah, South Korea was the largest East Asian trading partners to America. In 2007, the states exported about $34 billion and all that to South Korea. Yeah. And yeah, although classified as a language isolates, many theories have been proposed to explain the origins of Korean, and most prominent of these links is Korean to Altic languages of Central Asia. Apparently that includes Turkish, Mongolian and the Tugursik, Macau, Manchao, language of Siberia. Another would argue that the inclusion of Uralic languages like Hungarian and Finnish, and Japanese in the Macro family. Although not definitively proven, the inflection is accepted by most Korean linguists and deemed likely by Western linguists as well. And competing very associates Korean with the Dravidian languages of southern India, and all the Austronesian languages. And the term in Korean linguistic fiction is complicated. Hello Siri. Siri was confused and decided to disappear. I feel like it's also kind of discussed that by the long history of contact with Japanese and Chinese languages. Not surprisingly, Korean shares a certain linguistic features with each of the languages. Officially, there's two standard varieties of Korean in Korea. There's a Seoul dialect in South Korea, and then there's a Pyongyang dialect in North Korea. As the dialects are distinguished and regulated by each country's national language policy. And yeah, regional dialects roughly correspond with province boundaries. Anyway, this all seems to be going well, Homer. As the South Korean regional dialects can be like Gyeongsang, Cheong, Chola and Jeju Island. North Korean Korean, North Korean regional dialects are Kyong, Pyongan, and Hwanghae. As some of the dialects are not easily mutually intelligible at all, as Korean language is a part of the North Asian language known as Altic, which can include Turkish, Mongolian, Japanese, and suggests an early Northern migration. And trade, as Korean was also heavily influenced by Chinese, but had adopted its own writing system around the 16th century. So yeah. Now, as a result of not really knowing where it's come from, it can often be misunderstood or misrepresented. Whereas evidence can suggest that Korean and Japanese belong to the Altic language family, which includes aforementioned Turkish and Mongolian, as Chinese, although it's a completely different language family, influenced Korean greatly, and many believe that the language emerged from a single cultural source. But just as the Korean people of today did not descend from a single homogeneous race, the Korean language of today did not evolve from a single language. And various groups who populated the Korean peninsula in ancient times merged into homogeneous people with a single language during the unification of the 6th to the 14th century. And by the 15th century, Korean has emerged as a language we know today. As a modern Korean writing system of Hangul was divided in 1443 during the reign of King Sejong, and he was of the Yi dynasty from 1392 to 1910. And before Hangul, other Korean scripts use a complex system of Chinese characters to represent the sounds of Korean, but because of the difference between Chinese and Korean, Chinese characters could not adequately denote Korean speech. Furthermore, only the elite could afford the time necessary to study Chinese. So King Sejong, from 1397 to 1450, commissioned the invention of a phonetic script, both more efficient and accessible to the common people, and described it as one of the most scientific alphabets ever devised. The Hangul consists of 24 letters, and 14 consonants and 10 vowels, and combinations of the letters represented 5 double consonants and 11 diphthongs, as letters roots in the clusters of 2, 3, and 4 syllables, and words. As the invention of Hangul marked a major achievement of the history of Korean culture, because it has contributed to one of the highest literacy rates in the world, and a variety of grammatical forms revealed high value Koreans traditionally placed on expressing and receiving respect. As Korean verbs have several forms to indicate inferior, equal, or superior status of one speaker to another. As Koreans now only use a few respectful styles, a change reflecting growth of the middle class and greater social equality. But modern Korean still reflects China's deep influence over the centuries, and roughly half of the Korean vocabulary consists of words derived from Chinese, mainly through the Confucian classics. Say, South Koreans generally use a hybrid writing system, in which words are derived from Chinese and are written with Chinese characters, while Korean words are written Hangul, and North Korean are totally limited to Chinese characters, and even write Chinese words in Hangul. That's why it's not borrowing. Korean is completely dissonant and in sentence structure and all. So yeah. Moving on to legends, I'm going to be talking about a Korean myth of the sun and the moon. So yeah, as it time where only stars existed, the time before the dawning of the sun and the moon, there was a poor peasant woman who sold rice cakes for a living. As a peasant woman had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Isaac, the elder of 2, was a wise and responsible son, while her daughter, Dalson, had an innocent and trusting young heart. As the children lived in a valley far from the closest village, every day their mother would walk to the village to sell their delicious rice cakes. One day, while returning from the village, the mother encountered a tiger on a path on top of the hill. As the tiger demanded a rice cake, and in exchange she would spare the woman's life, she was frightened and gave him the best rice cake from her basket. So the tiger left the woman to continue on her path. On the very next hill, the tiger reappeared in front of the poor woman, and this time demanded 2 rice cakes, and as the first one had only whet his appetite and then made him even more hungry, as she luxuriantly surrendered her rice cakes, and in exchange the tiger would keep her alive and continue home to her children. However, on the next hill the tiger came back and was even hungrier. And therefore he kept reappearing and the woman kept eating all the rice cakes, and she waited until finally the food ran out and her basket was empty. As the woman pleaded with the hungry tiger and begged him for him to spare her life and for the sake of her 2 young children who were waiting for her at home, and at the thought of having not only 1 but 3 people for dinner, the tiger devoured the poor mother and left no trace of her, other than the clothes which she kept. And the hungry tiger knew that Isaac and Dawson would be at home, waiting for the mother's return from the village, so he disguised himself in the woman's clothing. Something to sound a little bit like Little Red Riding Hood and all. So it's off for the house, and for a while the children thought that their mother might have stayed longer in the village. But it was getting dark and the children were afraid, so they locked the door. The wise cow called out to them from the other side of the locked door, and little Dawson was so relieved that she thought it was the mother right away and ran to the door, but Isaac stopped her just in time, as he could recognise a difference in the tiger's tone and refused to open the door for him. As the tiger frustrated and became frustrated more, and his hunger grew in the pit of his belly, and covered his paws in white powder from the rice cakes and poked his finger through the cracks in the door and tricked the children into thinking he had smooth white skin just as their mother. But eventually Isaac and Dulsan were convinced. And then children screamed as the tiger chased them round and round the house, out the door and up a large tree. And the axe, being persistent, found an axe in the house and began chopping the tree down to get the siblings. And at that moment Dalson prayed to the heavens, asking for a rope, and she prayed that if her and her brother were pure of heart and meant to be saved, the rope would be strong enough to rescue them. But if they were not, the rope would be old and rotten, and that rope would fall. And a long strong rope was sent down from above, and the 2 children started climbing until they reached the heavens. I'm curious about what happened. What he saw happening in the tree, the child also prayed, asking the heavens to send him a rope so he could follow the children and devour them. Moments later, a thick rotten rope was sent down from the sky and the tiger started climbing. On its way up to the heavens, the rope broke and plunged down from the sky into a millet field, spilling his blood and making the millet stalk red. And in the heavens, Isaac became the sun, and his Hayanim, and Dalson became the moon, Dalim. In some versions, the tale goes that say that Dalson, being so young, was afraid of the dark, and so all the brothers decided to swap places with her, allowing her to become the sun and all. And there's like a moral behind it, that when you want something badly enough, you'll do whatever, you'll be able to find a way to retrieve it. as long as your intentions are good, kind and pure. And to see them and yeah. And it's like, if your intentions aren't good, then you're still gonna blow up in your face, kind of thing. So it's a nice little story. So yeah, I'm gonna say bye for now, and I hope you like that little legend for you. Yeah, I'll see you all very soon.